When I turned 80, I threw a party for my whole family. No one showed up. I called my son, and that's when my daughter-in-law answered, "We're traveling. Go do some cleaning." A week later, they came back home and found the new owners. "I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far my story has reached." I'm Janine, and at 80 years old, I thought I had learned all of life's hard lessons. I was wrong. The cruelest one was waiting for me on what should have been one of my happiest days. For weeks, I had been planning my 80th birthday party, not a big celebration, just a simple family gathering in the house where I had raised my son Tyson, where his children had taken their first steps, where 3 generations of memories lived in every corner. I spent days cleaning, cooking his favorite dishes, arranging flowers from my garden. I even bought a new tablecloth, something I hadn't done in years. The dining room looked perfect that Saturday afternoon. The roast was golden in the oven, the apple pie cooling on the counter. I had made Tyson's favorite potato salad, the one with the secret ingredient his grandmother taught me. Tatum, my daughter-in-law, always said she loved my homemade rolls, so I made 3 dozen. The table was set for 8 people: Tyson, Tatum, their twin boys Marcus and Michael, my daughter-in-law's sister who sometimes joined us, and a few spots for neighbors who might drop by. I checked the clock again. 3 o'clock. They were supposed to arrive at 2. At 3:30, I called Tyson's phone. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again at 4. Same thing. By 4:30, my hands were shaking as I dialed once more. This time, someone answered. "Hello?" Tatum's voice was irritated, like I had interrupted something important. "Hi, sweetie, it's Mom. I was wondering where you all are. The food is getting cold and—" Oh, there was a pause and I could hear water splashing in the background. Music. Laughter. "We're on vacation. Didn't Tyson tell you?" My stomach dropped. Vacation? But it's my birthday party. We planned this weeks ago. Well, this trip came up last minute. Great deal on a resort in Cabo. The boys are having such a good time in the pool. I gripped the phone tighter. "But you knew about today. I bought groceries. I've been cooking all morning. Look, Janine, we can't control when good opportunities come up. Besides, you're probably just going to clean the house anyway, right? That's what you always do." The words hit me like ice water. Not, "Sorry we missed it," or "We'll make it up to you." Just, "Go clean the house." Like that's all I was good for. Like that's all I had ever been to them. "When will you be back?" I managed to ask. "Next weekend, maybe. The boys want to stay longer." I heard Tatum laugh at something in the background. Then she spoke to me again. "Oh, and Janine? While you're at it, could you clean the bathroom upstairs? Marcus left it pretty messy before we left." She hung up before I could respond. I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by enough food to feed an army, wearing the new dress I had bought especially for today. The house was spotless, the flowers were fresh, and I was completely alone. For the first time in my 80 years, I truly understood what it meant to be disposable. I walked through each room, seeing it with different eyes. This wasn't my home anymore. It was just the place where I came to serve them, the living room where I watched their kids while they went out, the kitchen where I cooked their meals, the laundry room where I washed their clothes. Even my own bedroom felt like quarters for the help. That night, I sat at the dining table, eating a piece of my own birthday cake in complete silence. The candles had long since been blown out, not with a wish, but just to stop the wax from dripping onto the tablecloth I'd probably never use again. The days that followed were the loneliest of my life, but they were also the most eye-opening. With nothing but time and silence, I began to see patterns I had been blind to for years. I found Tyson's tablet on the coffee table, left behind in their rush to paradise. When it buzzed with notifications, I glanced at the screen. Social media posts. Dozens of them. Pictures of my son and his family lounging by an infinity pool, cocktails in hand. The boys splashing in crystal-clear water under palm trees. "Best family vacation ever," Tatum had written under a photo of herself in a designer bikini. So spontaneous. Sometimes you just have to treat yourself. Treat yourself. With what money? I scrolled through more posts. 5-star resort. First-class flights. shopping trips where Tatum bought purses that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Marcus and Michael had new iPads, new clothes, new everything. I set the tablet down and walked to my desk where I kept all my financial records. I'm old-fashioned that way. I like paper. I like seeing everything written down. What I saw made my chest tight. For the past 10 years, I had been giving Tyson money almost every month. Just until we get back on our feet, Mom. Just to help with the boys' school expenses. Just for a little emergency fund. Always just until something. But that something never came. I had paid for their car repairs, their home improvements, their family vacations disguised as loans that were never repaid. I had bought the boys' clothes, their sports equipment, their birthday presents, not because Tyson asked me to, but because Tatum would mention how expensive everything was getting, how hard it was to make ends meet. But looking at these resort photos, I realized something horrible. They weren't struggling. They were living a lifestyle they couldn't afford because they knew I would always be there to catch them when they fell. Or more accurately, they knew I would always be there to pay before they even had the chance to fall. I pulled out more bank statements. The pattern was clear once I really looked at it. Every time I gave them money, within days there would be posts about new purchases, dinners out, weekend trips. My money wasn't going to necessities. It was funding their entertainment while they trained me to feel guilty for having needs of my own. The worst part wasn't the money. It was realizing that this vacation, this spontaneous trip, had been planned. I found a confirmation email that had been forwarded to Tyson's tablet 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. They had known they would miss my birthday, and they simply didn't care enough to mention it. I thought about all the times I had canceled my own plans to babysit at the last minute. All the times I had cooked dinner for them when they were too stressed to manage. All the times I had done their laundry, cleaned their house, organized their affairs while they relaxed or went out with friends. When had I become their unpaid housekeeper? When had my feelings stopped mattering entirely? I made myself a cup of tea and sat in Tyson's favorite chair, looking around the living room. Every piece of furniture held a memory, but now those memories felt different. Had he ever seen this as his childhood home, or just as a place where services were provided? The answer came to me in a flash of painful clarity. Last Christmas, when Tatum was showing off photos of their vacation to Disney World, she had said something that stuck with me. It's so nice to have family who understand their role. At the time, I thought she meant I understood my role as a grandmother. Now I realized she meant I understood my role as their financial and domestic support system, not their family, their employee. That's when something inside me shifted. Not anger yet, but something colder, something more dangerous. A clarity I had never felt before. I picked up the tablet again and looked at their smiling faces one more time. They looked so happy, so carefree. They were having the time of their lives while I sat alone in a house full of food no one came to eat. For 80 years, I had put everyone else's needs before my own. For 80 years, I had been the good mother, the helpful grandmother, the reliable safety net. And what did I have to show for it? An empty house and a family who saw me as nothing more than a resource to be used. But I wasn't dead yet, and I had just learned the most valuable lesson of my life. Sometimes the people who should love you the most are the ones who respect you the least. Something was going to change. I could feel it building inside me like a storm gathering strength. They thought they knew Janine, the perpetual giver, the pushover grandmother. They were about to meet someone entirely different. Monday morning arrived with an unusual sense of purpose. I woke up before dawn, not because I couldn't sleep, but because my mind was crystal clear for the first time in years. I made my coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and made a decision that would have terrified the old Janine. I was going to sell the house, not just threaten to sell it, not just think about it, I was actually going to do it. The house that Tyson considered his birthright, his future inheritance, his safety net. The house where he had brought Tatum as a newlywed, where they had moved back in temporarily 5 years ago and somehow never left. The house that had become their free hotel with maid service. I called my attorney first. Harold Brennan had been handling my affairs for 15 years. Ever since my husband passed, he was one of the few people who knew the real story of my finances, who had watched me quietly support my son's family while they treated me like hired help. Janine? Harold sounded surprised to hear from me so early. Is everything all right? Harold, I need to know something. The house is in my name alone, correct? Tyson has no legal claim to it? There was a pause. Well, yes, it's entirely yours. You inherited it from Robert, and it's been in your name for 20 years. Why are you asking? Because I'm going to sell it. Sell it, Janine, are you sure? I mean, where will Tyson and his family live? The question that would have stopped me cold just days ago now barely registered. That's not my problem anymore, Harold. I could hear the shock in his voice. Harold had known me as the soft-spoken widow who always put her family first. Janine, this seems very sudden. Did something happen? I told him about the birthday party, about the phone call, about finding the vacation photos while they ignored me completely. Harold listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. I see, he said finally. Well, legally, you have every right to sell. The house is yours, free and clear. But Janine, are you prepared for the consequences? This will create a lot of family drama. Harold, they created the drama when they decided I wasn't worth basic respect. I'm just refusing to enable it anymore. By Tuesday, I had 3 real estate agents scheduled to come look at the house. I chose Sarah Martinez, a sharp woman in her 40s who didn't flinch when I explained that I needed the sale completed quickly and quietly. How quickly are we talking? Sarah asked, walking through the living room with her measuring tape. They'll be back next weekend. I want this done before then. Sarah raised an eyebrow. That's very tight timing, but it's possible. This is a beautiful property, well maintained. The market is strong right now for houses like this. I think we can have it under contract within days if you're willing to price it competitively. I don't need top dollar, I told her. I need it gone. What Sarah didn't know was that I had been preparing for this moment without even realizing it. For months, I had been quietly removing my personal belongings from the common areas. My photo albums, my jewelry, my mother's china set. I had told myself I was just organizing, but really, I think some part of me had been getting ready to leave. While Sarah took photos and measurements, I went upstairs to Tyson and Tatum's bedroom. They had taken over the master suite years ago, claiming they needed more space for the boys. I had moved into the small guest room without complaint like I always did. Their room was a mess. Clothes thrown everywhere. Expensive makeup scattered across my mother's antique vanity. Shopping bags from their pre-vacation spree still sitting in the corner. On the nightstand was a stack of credit card bills. I didn't mean to look, but the top one was open, and I could see the balance. $23,000. $23,000 in debt, and they were in Cabo spending money on resort amenities and designer drinks. I walked to the closet and saw Tatum's collection of purses, each one worth hundreds of dollars. Shoes that cost more than I spent on groceries in a month. Tyson's side wasn't much better. Expensive golf clubs he used twice a year, designer clothes with tags still attached. This was what my money had been supporting. Not their mortgage, not their children's education, not emergencies, their shopping addiction. I closed the closet door and went back downstairs, where Sarah was finishing her assessment. Mrs. Peterson, I have to ask, are you sure about the timeline? Selling a house is usually a major life decision that takes months of planning. I looked around the living room one more time, at the sofa where Tyson used to read bedtime stories to the boys, back when he still lived here as my son instead of my tenant, at the fireplace where we used to hang Christmas stockings when he was small, at the dining room table where we had shared thousands of meals when he actually wanted to spend time with me. I've been planning this longer than I realized, I told her. I just didn't know it yet. By Wednesday, the listing was live. By Thursday, we had 2 offers. By Friday, I had accepted one, a cash offer from a young couple with twin toddlers. They reminded me of Tyson and Tatum 20 years ago, full of hope and love for each other. The difference was, these people had actually saved their money and earned their home. The closing was scheduled for the following Thursday. Tyson and Tatum would return Sunday to find strangers living in what they considered their house. As I signed the sales contract, Harold looked at me over his glasses. Janine, I have to ask one more time. Are you absolutely certain about this? Once those papers are signed, there's no going back. I thought about my empty birthday party. I thought about Tatum's dismissive voice telling me to clean the house. I thought about years of being taken for granted, used and discarded whenever something better came along. Harold, I've never been more certain of anything in my life. That weekend, while my son and his family posted more photos of their spontaneous vacation, I packed my belongings into boxes. Not everything. I was moving to a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment across town, and I didn't need the big furniture anymore. But everything that mattered to me, everything that was truly mine, came with me. On Saturday night, I sat in my new apartment, surrounded by boxes but feeling lighter than I had in years. Tomorrow, Tyson and Tatum would come home from their vacation. Tomorrow, they would discover that the woman they had taken for granted was no longer the woman they thought they knew. I poured myself a glass of wine and looked out at the city lights from my new living room window. For the first time in decades, I was living in a space that was entirely mine. No one else's clothes in the closets, no one else's dishes in the sink, no one else's problems weighing down my shoulders. I was free, and they had no idea what was coming. Sunday afternoon, I was arranging my books in my new apartment when my phone rang. Tyson's number. For a moment, I considered not answering. Then I realized I wanted to hear this conversation. I wanted to hear the exact moment when he realized that actions have consequences. Mom? His voice was confused, maybe a little annoyed. Where are you? We're at the house and your car isn't here. I took a sip of my tea and settled into my new armchair. I'm at my apartment. Your apartment? What apartment? Mom, what are you talking about? My new apartment. I moved last week while you were in Cabo. There was a pause. I could hear Tatum in the background, her voice sharp and demanding, though I couldn't make out the words. Mom, this isn't funny. We just got back from our trip and we're tired. Can you just come home so we can talk about whatever's bothering you? Tyson, I said calmly, I am home. What the hell does that mean? His voice was getting louder now. I could picture him pacing around the kitchen, running his hands through his hair the way he used to do as a child when he was frustrated. It means that home is where you're respected and valued. This apartment is my home now. Mom, you're not making any sense. Look, if you're upset about us missing your birthday, we can make it up to you. We'll take you out to dinner next weekend. Next weekend. Like I was a chore on their to-do list that could be rescheduled. Tyson, do you remember whose name is on the deed to that house? What? I don't know, yours I guess, but Mom, that's always been the family house. That's where I grew up, where the boys are growing up. You can't just— The conversation was interrupted by a commotion in the background. Car doors slamming. Voices. Tyson's voice became muffled like he was covering the phone. Mom, there are people in our driveway. A family with kids. They're unloading a moving truck. I know. You know? Mom, what is going on? I took another sip of tea. They're the new owners. The silence that followed was so complete I wondered if the call had dropped. Then Tyson's voice came back, but it was different now. Panicked. The new owners? Mom, what are you talking about? What new owners? I sold the house, Tyson. It closed on Thursday. I heard the phone hit something hard, probably the kitchen counter. Then Tatum's voice, shrill and furious. Let me talk to her. Janine. Tatum's voice was like fingernails on a chalkboard. What the hell have you done? I've reclaimed my life. This is insane. You can't just sell our house. We live here. You lived in my house. Now you don't. But our stuff is here. The boys' rooms, all of our belongings. The new owners were very gracious. They've agreed to let you collect your personal belongings this week, but you'll need to coordinate with them, not me. I could hear chaos in the background now. The boys asking questions, doors slamming, footsteps running up and down stairs. Tyson's voice, loud and desperate. This can't be legal. She can't just sell our house without telling us. But it was legal. It was completely, entirely legal, because it had never been their house. Tatum came back on the phone, her voice now cold and calculating instead of panicked. Janine, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is cruel. You're hurting your own grandchildren. Marcus and Michael don't understand what's happening. For just a moment, the old guilt tried to surface. Then I remembered their smiling faces in those vacation photos while I sat alone on my birthday. Tatum, you had a choice. You could have treated me like family, like someone who mattered. Instead, you treated me like unpaid help. Now you're dealing with the consequences of that choice. We never treated you like help. You told me to go clean the house while you were on vacation with my money. That's not— we never said— You said exactly that. On my 80th birthday, when I called to ask where you were. Tyson took the phone back. His voice was pleading now, a tone I hadn't heard from him since he was a teenager asking for car privileges. Mom, please, even if you're angry, even if we messed up, you can't do this. Where are we supposed to live? The boys have school. They have friends here. You'll figure it out. You're both adults with college educations. I'm sure you'll manage. But Mom— Tyson, I'm going to say something to you that I should have said years ago. I am not responsible for solving your problems. I am not responsible for funding your lifestyle. I am not responsible for providing you with free housing, free childcare, and free housekeeping services. We never asked for those things. You never asked because you never had to. You just took them and assumed they would always be there. There was a long pause. When Tyson spoke again, his voice was small, confused. Mom, I don't understand. What happened? Why are you being like this? For a moment, my heart softened. This was my little boy, the child I had raised and loved and sacrificed for. But then I remembered that little boys grow up, and sometimes they grow up into people who take advantage of the ones who love them most. What happened is that I finally realized I deserve better than being treated like an ATM with cleaning services. We don't treat you like that. Tyson, when was the last time you asked about my life? Not my money, not my availability to babysit, not my willingness to help with your problems. When was the last time you asked how I was feeling, what I was thinking, what I wanted? The silence stretched on so long I could hear my own heartbeat. I thought so, I said quietly. Mom, please. We can fix this. We can change. Just don't do this to us. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm doing something for me. For the first time in 20 years, I'm putting my own needs first. But where are we supposed to go tonight? We can't just sleep in the car with the boys. I felt a flicker of the old sympathy, but I pushed it down. You'll figure it out. The same way millions of other adults figure out their housing situations every day. This is unbelievable. Tatum's voice came from the background. She's lost her mind. No, I said, loud enough for her to hear. I found it. I hung up the phone and turned it off. They would call back, probably dozens of times. They would be angry, then desperate, then manipulative. They would try guilt. They would try bargaining. They would try everything except the one thing that might have actually worked: genuine remorse and respect. But it was too late for that now. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. I walked to my new kitchen and started making dinner for one. Outside my window, I could see the lights of the city beginning to twinkle as evening approached. Somewhere across town, my son and his family were dealing with the reality that their safety net was gone. I felt something I hadn't expected to feel: relief. Pure, clean relief. Like I had been holding my breath for 20 years and could finally exhale. They found my address Tuesday evening. I had been expecting it, so when I heard the aggressive knocking on my apartment door, I wasn't surprised. I finished watering my plants on the balcony, took my time walking to the door, and looked through the peephole. Tyson stood there with his face red and his jaw clenched. Tatum was right beside him, her arms crossed and her expression twisted into something ugly. Behind them, I could see Marcus and Michael sitting in the car in the parking lot, their faces pressed against the windows. I opened the door, but kept the security chain attached. Mom, we need to talk. Tyson's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. We're talking now. Open the door properly. This is ridiculous. I'm comfortable talking like this. Tatum pushed forward, her voice shrill. Janine, this has gone far enough. You've made your point. Now let's be adults and fix this mess. What mess would that be? Don't play dumb. Tatum's composure cracked completely. You sold our house. You left us homeless. Your own grandchildren are sleeping in a hotel room because of your selfish tantrum. My tantrum? I kept my voice level, which seemed to infuriate her more. Tatum, let me ask you something. In the 5 years you've lived in that house, how much rent did you pay? She blinked, caught off guard. We were family. Family doesn't charge rent. You're right. Family doesn't charge rent. but family also doesn't treat each other like unpaid servants. Tyson stepped closer to the door. Mom, we never treated you like a servant. Really? Tyson, when was the last time you helped with household chores in that house? That's different. You like keeping busy. When was the last time you asked if I needed help with anything? You never said you needed help. When was the last time you offered to cook dinner for me? You're better at cooking. When was the last time you remembered my birthday without me reminding you? Silence. I continued, my voice still calm but with steel underneath. When was the last time you asked about my doctor's appointments, my friends, my interests, my feelings about anything that didn't directly affect your convenience? More silence. That's what I thought. Tatum pushed Tyson aside, pressing her face close to the crack in the door. Look, we get it. You feel unappreciated, but you can't punish the children for that. Marcus is crying every night because he doesn't understand why Grandma threw them out of their home. The guilt hit me like a physical blow, just as she intended. But I had been expecting this manipulation too. Tatum, those children are crying because their parents made choices that led to consequences. They're crying because instead of teaching them about gratitude and respect, you taught them that taking advantage of people is normal. That's not true, isn't it? Did you ever teach them to thank me for the money I spent on their clothes, their toys, their activities? Did you ever teach them to help with chores, to show appreciation for the free housing and childcare I provided? Tyson tried a different approach, his voice softer now. Mom, even if we made mistakes, we're still family. Family forgives each other. You're right, Tyson. Family does forgive each other. But forgiveness doesn't mean continuing to enable destructive behavior. So you're never going to forgive us? I forgive you, but I'm not going back to being your safety net while you treat me like hired help. Tatum's mask slipped completely then. You're a bitter old woman. You can't stand that we have our own lives, that we don't revolve around you anymore. Tatum, you lived in my house for 5 years without paying rent, utilities, or even groceries most of the time. You used me as free childcare whenever you wanted to go out. You took money from me for emergencies that turned out to be vacations and shopping sprees. Exactly when was I the center of your universe? We included you in things. You included me in things when you needed something from me. Tyson stepped back, running his hands through his hair in that familiar gesture of frustration. Okay, fine. Maybe we took you for granted sometimes, but Mom, you can't just destroy our whole life over it. I didn't destroy your life. I stopped subsidizing it. It's the same thing. No, Tyson, it's really not. There was a long moment where we all just stared at each other through the crack in the door. I could see the calculation in Tatum's eyes, the way she was searching for a new angle of attack. What about your grandsons? She said finally. You claim to love them, but you're hurting them to get back at us. I do love them. Which is why I'm showing them that actions have consequences, that treating people badly doesn't work forever. They're 8 years old. They don't understand consequences. Then maybe it's time you started teaching them. Tatum turned to Tyson, her voice becoming wheedling. Tell her about the custody arrangement. Tell her what the lawyer said. Tyson looked uncomfortable. Mom, we talked to a lawyer about the boys. Since you were their primary caregiver after school and during summers, and now you've cut off contact. What are you saying? We might have grounds for a grandparent rights case. The boys are attached to you, and you've disrupted their living situation. I stared at my son, feeling something inside me go very cold. Are you threatening to sue me for access to children you're using as emotional blackmail? We're just saying that courts take the best interests of children very seriously. I see. I closed the door, turned the deadbolt, and walked to my kitchen table where I kept my important documents. I found Harold's business card and dialed his number. Harold, it's Janine. I need you to document something for me. Through the door, I could hear Tyson and Tatum arguing in hushed voices, then more knocking. Mom, open the door. We're not done talking. But we were done. We had been done the moment they decided to threaten me with legal action instead of offering genuine change. I stayed silent until I heard their footsteps retreat down the hallway. Then I went to my window and watched them walk to their car, their body language angry and defeated. Marcus looked up at my building as they drove away. I waved, and he waved back before Tatum told him to face forward. That night, I called Harold back and told him everything about the conversation, about their implicit threats, about the way they had tried to use the children as leverage. "Janine," Harold said carefully, "I want you to know that what you've told me tonight changes everything. If they pursue legal action, we'll be ready." "What do you mean?" "I mean that threatening a grandparent with legal action while simultaneously asking for financial support is a very bad look in court, combined with their history of taking advantage of your generosity. Any judge would see through their manipulation immediately." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders that I hadn't even realized was there. "Thank you, Harold. Janine, for what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. It takes courage to stop enabling people you love." After I hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment and realized something profound. For the first time in years, maybe decades, I felt truly safe. Safe from being used. Safe from being manipulated. Safe from being taken for granted. I had spent 80 years learning to give. Now I was finally learning to protect what was mine. 6 months later, I was tending to my herb garden on the balcony when my phone rang. I had learned to check the caller ID before answering, a habit that would have seemed paranoid to the old Janine, but felt like basic self-preservation to the new one. It was Tyson. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. "Hello." "Mom." His voice was different now, smaller, tired. "Can we talk?" "We're talking." "I mean, can I come see you? Please?" There was something in his tone that made me curious. Not the anger from 6 months ago, not the desperation from our last confrontation. Something that sounded almost like humility. "Where are Tatum and the boys?" "They're not with me. Tatum and we separated last month." I set down my watering can and sat in my patio chair. "I see. Can I come up? I'm in your parking lot." I looked down from my second-floor balcony and saw him sitting in an older sedan I didn't recognize. His BMW was nowhere in sight. "Apartment 2B, I'll buzz you up." When I opened the door, I barely recognized my son. He had lost weight, his clothes hung loosely on his frame, and there were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. But more than that, he carried himself differently. The swagger was gone. "Thank you for letting me come up," he said quietly. I gestured to the living room. "Sit down. Would you like some coffee? That would be nice." I busied myself in the kitchen, giving us both time to adjust to this new dynamic. When I brought him his coffee, he was looking around the apartment with an expression I couldn't quite read. "It's nice here," he said. "Peaceful." "It is." He took a sip of coffee and set the mug down carefully on the coaster I had provided. The old Tyson wouldn't have bothered with a coaster. "Mom, I need to tell you some things. I need to apologize." I waited. "You were right. About everything. About how we treated you, about taking advantage, about all of it." "What happened?" He let out a long breath. "Reality happened. After you sold the house, we had to figure out how to actually support ourselves. We found an apartment, but between rent and utilities and groceries. Mom, I had no idea how much money we were actually spending, or how much you were covering for us. Where are you living now? A 2-bedroom apartment across town. It's fine. It's just different. The boys had to change schools. That was hard. And Tatum?" His face darkened. "Tatum didn't handle the adjustment well. She kept saying it was temporary, that you'd come around, that we just had to wait you out. She couldn't accept that our lifestyle had to change. But you could. I had to. When the credit card bills came due and there was no backup plan, no safety net. I got a second job. Nights and weekends. Tatum said I was abandoning the family, that I should just call you and work things out." "Did you consider that?" He looked me in the eye for the first time since he'd arrived. "I did. I picked up the phone so many times. But then I would remember what you said about consequences, about taking responsibility, and I realized that calling you would just prove that I hadn't learned anything. I felt something shift in my chest, not forgiveness exactly, but recognition. This was the first time in years that Tyson had spoken to me like an adult talking to another adult, instead of a child demanding from a parent. How are the boys handling everything? Better than I expected, honestly. They miss you, but they've adjusted to the new school. They're learning to do their own laundry, help with cooking. Things we should have taught them years ago. And Tatum? Tatum couldn't handle not being able to shop whenever she wanted, not being able to go out to eat 3 times a week, not having someone else handle all the household management. She said I had changed, that I was choosing work over family. Had you changed? Yeah, I had. I started seeing how much work goes into actually running a household, how much planning and effort and money. I started realizing how much we had been depending on you for everything. He paused, staring into his coffee mug. She started talking about moving back in with her mother, said she needed time to think. Last month, she moved out and took the boys. I'm sorry. Are you? The question surprised me. About your marriage ending? Yes. I never wanted that. Even after everything? Tyson, I never wanted to hurt you. I wanted to stop being hurt by you. There's a difference. He nodded slowly. I understand that now. We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. It was the first comfortable silence we had shared in years. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy? I considered the question seriously. Yes. For the first time in a very long time, I'm happy. I can see that. You look different. Lighter. I feel lighter. I've been thinking about what you said. About when I last asked about your life, your feelings, your needs. I couldn't remember a single time. It's okay, Tyson. No, it's not okay. It's not okay that I treated my own mother like she existed only to serve me. It's not okay that I let Tatum disrespect you in your own home. It's not okay that I missed your 80th birthday for a vacation. His voice cracked slightly on the last words. We can't change the past, I said gently. But we can change the future, if you'll let me. What do you mean? I mean, I want to try to have a real relationship with you. Not one where I take and you give. A real relationship where we're both people with needs and feelings and boundaries. I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation, of the old patterns. I didn't see them. What would that look like? I don't know yet. I'm still figuring out who I am when I'm not being taken care of by someone else. But I'd like to find out if you're willing to give me a chance. And if Tatum comes back, if she wants to reconcile, then she'll have to accept that things are different now, that I'm different now, and that my relationship with you is not negotiable. I reached over and touched his hand briefly. I'd like to try too. His eyes filled with tears. Really? Really? But Tyson, you need to understand something. I'm not going back to the way things were. I'm not going back to being the solution to everyone's problems. I wouldn't want you to. I'm learning to solve my own problems. And I'm not going to be free childcare or financial support. I understand. If you're in my life, it needs to be because you want to spend time with me, not because you need something from me. That's what I want too. As he got ready to leave, he turned back to me. Mom, I know this might sound strange, but I'm proud of you. Proud of me? For standing up for yourself. For refusing to be treated badly anymore. It took courage. After he left, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset and thinking about second chances. Not everyone deserves them. And not everyone who gets them uses them well. But sometimes, just sometimes, losing everything teaches people what really matters. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyson. Thank you for the coffee, and for giving me a chance to become someone you can be proud of. I smiled and typed back, I already am. 3 weeks later, he called to ask if I wanted to have lunch. Not because he needed anything, just because he thought it might be nice to spend time together. We met at a small cafe downtown, and for the first time in years, we talked about books, current events, memories from his childhood, and my plans for a small garden on my balcony. When the check came, he paid it without hesitation. Thank you, I said as we walked to our cars. For lunch? It was nothing. No, for becoming the man I always hoped you could be. He hugged me then, a real hug. Not the obligation hugs from before. And for the first time in years, I felt like I had my son back. The real one. the one who was worth loving because he had learned how to love back. That night, I called Harold to update my will. Not to cut anyone out, but to add something new. A trust fund for Marcus and Michael's education, with specific provisions that it could only be used for school expenses, and only if they maintained good grades and demonstrated respect for others. I had learned that real love isn't about giving people everything they want. It's about teaching them to become people who deserve good things. At 80 years old, I had finally learned the difference. Now I'm curious about you who listened to my story. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever been through something similar? Comment below, and meanwhile, I'm leaving on the final screen 2 other stories that are channel favorites, and they will definitely surprise you. Thank you for watching until here.